.4. During this presentation, I will be talking about a professional athlete's performance in basketball and is related to box out and rebounds, and a less experienced player. With this said, throughout this presentation, I will be ensuring that confidentiality is agreed and that the information said does not go out this room. During this presentation, I will be talking about these 7 criteria of 2 players. In the blue is a less experienced player, and in the green is a more experienced player. My less experienced player is called Emily. She does the best at defense rebounds, layup missed, defense rebounds, and 2-point scores. Harry, however, my more experienced player, does better on defense rebounds and 2-pointers scored. Here you can see the group data for offensive and defensive rebounds. Here you can see that some people were better at offensive rebounds rather than defensive rebounds. However, my more experienced player, Harry, was equal in both, and my less experienced player, Emily, was better in offensive rebounds rather than defensive rebounds. This could be due to her height or even her lack of experience. 2-pointers. Here you can see that my more experienced player, scored more than he missed, which is the same for my less experienced player. However, her difference is only 1, whereas his is 3. My more experienced player has 5 scored and 2 missed, which is good because then he is scoring more than he is missing. This could also be due to the way my less experienced player was stood, and the fact that she may not know where to position herself or how she shoots, for example, her technique. Layups. Here you can see that my more experienced player scored more than he missed, which is good, and he scored a lot more than he missed. However, my less experienced player missed more than she scored, which will have a negative effect on the play because obviously she's missing more than she's scoring. This could be due to, yet again, her height, because she's not quite as tall, therefore she's not quite able to reach it or able to aim quite as accurately, and she may not be able to get past a few players. Turnovers. Here we can see that my more experienced player did more than my less experienced player and did 5-3. They had a better success rate than they did fail. Harry has a higher percentage than Emily with succeeding in turnovers in the game. Offensive rebounds. Offensive rebounds are where my client did better than my less experienced player did better than my more experienced player, which is good and shows that some skills she's better at than the more experienced player. This could be where she positioned herself or where she just got involved and stuck in. Defensive rebounds. Here you can see that my less experienced person. Here you can see Emily did less defensive rebounds than Harry. This could have a negative effect on play because not quite stopping the ball from going in the hoop, not being quite as defensive as the more experienced player. Some strengths were that there was a higher success rate for 2-pointers was high, which was good. She was also able to get a high amount of offensive rebounds, more than the experienced player, which is good. This is good for the game of play because it makes her an asset to the team and helps her to score more goals. However, she had a high unsuccess rate when it came to layups compared to the success rate, which will have a negative effect on play because she's not scoring quite as many. The percentage of successful defensive box out rate was low, which will also have a negative effect because it means they're able to score more and it's not quite as effective. Preparation in box out and rebound. So, for a professional, the box out and rebound, you must start off by facing the ball and staying in contact with the player. This is to make sure you know, keeping in contact, make sure you know that where they are at all times, but keep an eye on the ball so you can see the movement of it, whether it's still going forward or whether it's going backwards. Here you can see that my less experienced player kept in contact with her player but wasn't quite facing the ball, therefore could have lost track of it and lost the flow of the game. Here you can see that she keeps in contact with the person as she turns around, which is good because she still knows where they are, and she is then following the ball as it goes up, which is good because she can keep her, then she is still knowing where the ball is in the game of play. Also with prep, to keep your arms out beside you to make sure they can't go around the other side, which is what she's doing. Execution. Here you can see that you should jump for the ball and keep your arms out straight so that you're able to get the ball quicker than the opponent. However, my less experienced player did not. She stood there, or she didn't jump, which meant that she didn't get ground, and that any other player could have got in and got the ball first. Her arms are, however, out in front of her and out to reach the ball, which is good. But she could have jumped in for the ball to make sure that she got it quicker and better than the opposition. Here you can see, here is where you are meant to, once you grab the ball, you're meant to have it up by your chin, with both hands on the ball, and to pivot away from the opponent, throwing it to the person on the side. And here my client is doing that. She has pivoted away from the opposition and is keeping the ball up close to her chin, making sure she has two hands on the ball with her elbows out wide, making sure that no one makes it harder for the opposition to take it out of her hands. My less experienced player had good peripheral vision on her target for it and the basket, which was the basket. She made sure that she knew where it was at all times and could see the ball rebounding off of it. The preparation phase was good due to her positioning, where she was facing the opponent, because she understood where they were, but yet still had a slight view of the ball, which was good. Extended her arms out in order to catch the ball quicker, giving her more distance, which was good because it gives the opposition less time to get hold of the ball. My client also was good at protecting the ball when in possession. She had her arms out, she had her elbows out wide, ensuring that to block off any opposition trying to get the ball, and held it up to her chin, making sure that she had full control. However, her weaknesses were the fact that she stood up straight, and which meant that she was unstable during the preparation phase, so her opponent could have just knocked her over, whereas if she had a wider stance then she would have been more stable. The feet were side on during the recovery phase and during the box out and in the prep. This is because if they are side on, then her body position isn't quite as stable as before, and they weren't facing her opponent. She didn't try to jump towards the ball to gain ground during the execution phase, meaning that any opposition could have just came in and taken the ball off of her. However, she was good flat-footed during the recovery phase. She was very stable and pivoted away from the opposition, which was good. Right, so the force. So here you can see is the force of a jump that my client did. Here you can see it starts off where Emily is standing still and her weight is the same as the ground reaction force, nothing's happening, it's all equal. Then it goes on to her unweighting, which is just before she begins her eccentric contraction before the downward phase. This is where her body lifts up slightly, unloading any weight, and then it begins to lower, increasing the weight. So there is a decrease in her weight and the ground reaction force. Then my client goes into the eccentric contraction phase, which is where she's lowering her body, however her muscles are still contracting to make sure it's slow and controlled. This is where force goes down. Then my client will go into the concentric contraction phase, which is the upward phase where she stops and begins to build herself back up and force her way up. These two, phase 3 and phase 4, are also called the amortization phase, which is where amortization phase. 5, my client then goes on to start to push herself off, and as she's going up, little bits of her body at a time are beginning to come off of the weight mat. Therefore, the last thing that will be touching the weight mat is her toes. And then when she's up in the air, then 6 is when she's up in the air and she's off. The more velocity she gets, more power and velocity she gets, and force going up in the concentric phase is better because she's up in the air for longer. You can also see, when doing the 90 degree and 45 degree, this is part of the short and stretch cycle, which is all about how if you go down really quick and come back up, then you have more power as to when you're stable in the 45 degree, because you lose that stretching ability, because it's like an elastic band, where if you ping it really fast and it goes really far, but if you hold it for a little bit it loses its elasticity. Here is the types of correlation, which is to do with the R value and the P value. The R value is the correlation coefficient, the level of correlation in data. If the value and the P value is used to measure the statistical significant data. However, to trust these, they should be lower than 0.05. However, if it's above that, then it's just pure luck. The first positive correlation is the R value equals +1. The negative correlation is the R value equals -1, and the no correlation equals R equals 0. Impulse and jump height. The impulse, here you can see there are three different bars for each player. This is all about how this is all about them doing the 45 degree, 90 degree, and the jump. Here you can see that the normal jump was the best because it's to do with the short and stretch cycle. The quicker you go down and back up, the more power you'll get because the elasticity just pings right back. The 45 degree and 90 degree is where you are stood in a 45 degree or 90 degree angle, and you're stood there, so the elasticity will begin to lower, giving you less oomph as you go up. You can also see that my client had a better CMG jump because, however, her bars don't quite match the jump height because her impulse isn't quite. The difference between an impulse and 45 degree and 90 degree isn't quite as significant as her jump height. However, the more force they have equals the more velocity, giving them a better jump height, and they're in the air for longer. The more velocity they have, the more they're able to